Today, we welcome Cecil Lipscomb, President and CEO of the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, which is the only Black federated human service organization in the state of Ohio. Cecil assumed the role of President and CEO in 2011. Prior to joining UBF, he was Senior Director of Institutes at Cleveland Clinic and worked as Director of Fundraising for Case Western Reserve University's School of Engineering. And prior to that, he worked in commercial and government sales, management, and marketing in the telecommunications sector for 10 years with two Fortune 100 companies who eventually merged to create Verizon. In addition to his executive responsibilities, Cecil devotes a significant amount of his time on a voluntary basis to organizations whose missions reflect his life's vision. These have included the Group Plan Commission, Eliza Bryant Village, Friends of Breakthrough Schools, United Way of Greater Cleveland, and the Center for Community Solutions. He has been honored over the years for his service to the community, including a Hidden Figures Award from the City of Cleveland and the Cleveland chapter of the NAACP, as well as the Smart Business 50 Innovation, Impact, and Sustainability Award. He is also in the current Leadership Cleveland class of 2024. Cecil has said his vision is focused on changing the future for Black Cleveland, and his work at UBF and service to the community reflects this commitment. Please welcome Cecil.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Rachel, for that wonderful introduction. I wanted to first start off by giving acknowledgement and kudos to Leadership Cleveland for hosting such important lunchtime conversations. My experience with Leadership Cleveland predates my involvement with the current class, the best class ever. I see you, Lacey. In the end, I wanted to make sure that we acknowledge the folks that are, and Marianne, I see you joined. Thank you so much for taking the time, and Michael as well, and the whole team over at Leadership Cleveland, to thank you all for the work that you do. I also have some of my staff members on, Adrian and I think Twyla and a couple board members will be joining. My board chair, Lynn Johnson, will also be joining us here briefly. I have a limited amount of time, and so I want to use that wisely. But thank you all again for taking the time to just join us today. So I'm going to try to share screen here. Let's see what I can do with this. Can you all see that? Let's see.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all. So here's I'll go back up a slide here. So just briefly, UBF is a $1.8 million organization, very small. We have 5 staff, 3, sometimes 4 contractors. We have about a 22 member board, depending on the day and year. We are an active organization in that our board serves as departments almost of UBF. They are very engaged in our daily work. And so what we do at our core is we give out money. We are a grant provider here in the city and beyond, and we'll talk about where. But our areas of focus for our grant making is basic needs, education, workforce development, and our new category, which is social justice. And I'll say our newest category because we've been doing this since all the support that we received during the pandemic to create this category. And in particular, I'd like to call out Enbridge, and you all may not or may know who Enbridge is, and that's Dominion. They created a joint opportunity for us to give money as partners to this particular category, given the need that the nation came to understand. This year, we give out about $550,000 plus to an estimated 40 agencies. We're in the midst of our first grant cycle. 2023 was the first year that United Black Fund created a second grant cycle. And we'll talk about why that is as we move through this deck. And again, this formal presentation will be fairly brief because I want to leave room for you all to ask questions. So please don't be shy. I love the interaction. So what we do, you saw those areas of focus in terms of our grant making. But where we are focused is in the areas of homelessness, violence, racism, and inequity. And you can read the list goes on. I added a couple of areas. That's why I pushed it down at the last minute, so I apologize for that. But I really wanted to talk about economic disparities because as I've come to spend time in my role, which I've started in 2011, I've grown up in UBF. I feel like over the years, but if you're not dealing with economic disparities, then you're missing tremendous platform to solve some of the other issues in the areas. So who we impact. Um, so I want to just kind of call out a couple of areas. Cuyahoga County and Summit County are critical areas for us. We obviously would focus more on the urban core. But I just wanted to make sure that you all recognized certain elements of our work, and I'm gonna try to put them in categories now. What you're seeing on your screen now are our fiscal partners, our fiscal sponsor relationships. We feel like this is the age of collaborative work. We are small, so we can't do things on our own and make national impact, but we recognize that we can establish Cleveland as a national leader by creating programmatic activities with partners. Some of you all may have heard of Futureland. That's a diverse tech ecosystem and conference that we helped to establish in partnership with Jumpstart and the mayor's office here in the city of Cleveland. This is important work to actually shine light on, a area of missed opportunity, I'll say, where we're losing the opportunity to hire talent, in particular in minority communities, right here at home. So we just wanted to create safe spaces and collaborative spaces for tech-minded and creatives in industry. So we want to kind of gird up Cleveland's tech industry and make it more inclusive. Third Space Action Lab is listed there. We help them on a couple of different fronts, but I'll speak to our PERC initiative with them, Partnership for Equitable and Resilient Communities. And this is a collaborative with about 8 or 9 different agencies, really understanding or being intentional about hearing from the people in the community as to what their needs are and being responsive. And this is Melville out of Connecticut is kind of issued a challenge grant, and we've had support from Gund and St. Luke's and quite a number of agencies that stepped up to actually collect matching funds. And this is the first time I've been involved where outside funding has been allowed, and I'm using that word lightly, allowed to partner with local funding to solve our local issues. And you can see the rest on the screen. The Cleveland Black Equity Humanity Fund, I'll just call out the fact that we are raising money for Morel McCain currently. She is Cleveland's only Olympian, headed to the Summer Olympics in Paris this summer. And so things that we know that are historically inequitable for that group. Well, how is that historically inequitable? Well, Jesse Owens had to sell some of his awards, his medals to make it when he got back home. And so we don't want that ever to happen again. This person, this hero of Cleveland, we want to treat them with great pride and support. And so here's where I'll speak to more of our other programs, meaning our CDTO, Center for Diverse and Thriving Organizations. This is a place where we're actually training today our grantee organizations and those who have never received grants from us, the leaders of those organizations, in basically a collaborative effort, a cohort, and this is, I believe, our 4th or 5th cohort, where we have subject matters of fundraising and grants and advocacy, and they just learn from a diverse category of trainers how to better lead and scale and impact the causes that they care about. But most importantly, we wanted to show that these entities in Cleveland, these wonderful nonprofits, were doing work right next door to each other, and they did not know that the other existed. We deal with agencies that are smaller. We also fund very scaled or important agencies that have scale, but we support programs that are maybe less attractive to the greater and broader community that impact people of color and in particular African Americans in Cleveland. And so I wanted to just call out the CDTO, and then we have Mortar Cleveland, MORTAR, is a business incubator for small businesses throughout primarily our urban community. And we're taking them through a 15-week training cohort. And this has been I think our second and third cohorts. We're doing two this year. This is our second year of that, where we're training business leaders on how to scale, because we know from that, if they're doing well, they hire people, money exchanged in between communities is more likely to raise more people up. And so we have those things happening. But in particular, the Project Noir, I wanted to just call that out because that's one that we recently supported. And again, partnership, we try to do things, as you see a theme here, we're doing things in partnership with other groups. Project Noir, they did a study, and many of you may have seen this. The survey said that Cleveland was one of the worst places for African American women to live in America. And so that whole initiative is being established to make Cleveland a more livable city and a place where African American women can thrive. And so when we see these types of initiatives happening, we immediately gird up and support them and give them more reach. Talking last but not least about I'll stop sharing here, but some of our grantee organizations, I just wanted to call out. Pregnant Without Possibilities, Veranda Rogers. They recently received, I believe, a $25,000 contribution from us, and Renounce Denounce also did as well. Renounce Denounce is kind of a incarceration reentry or avoidance incarceration diversion program where it provides mental health training and just a lot of support to people in urban environments that may be associated or affiliated with a gang, and giving them options and alternatives and support to choose differently. We also, with Pregnant with Possibilities, excuse me, the notion that you have support pre and post pregnancy is important for many people. We know this, just based on the statistics in Cleveland with infant mortality and quite a few things that are disproportionately affecting women of color. And so this initiative just provides mental health training again and support to families and in particular to single women and also single men when they are trying to care for their families but may not be in a family unit that is traditional. So we recognize that at a basic level, we have to support the human being, and we do this through, I would say, 40 or 50 different agencies, all of these collaborative partnerships, and then in turn, allowing those people to come to us for ongoing support. So UBF, if I can just sum it up here, and I'll share my screen with one more thing before we go, is it feels like home for our grantee organizations. It feels like home for the community. There's no retribution for questions. We establish that culture in staff. But sometimes home has discipline and correction, but it's mostly love. It comes from a place of love. So it's like, wait, you turn this in, and let's come to the office. Let's sit down and talk. And so those conversations happen, but they know that the point is so that you don't show up this way elsewhere in the city, or that you show up better when you're approaching major corporations for funding. So I see that we have quite a few people on, and I'm hopefully you all have questions, but I do want to just share that UBF is hosting our annual meeting this week. This is a shameless plug, and we're doing this on Juneteenth at the Trust Event Center. Juneteenth is June 19th. I would encourage you all to join us. Yes, that says 5:30 to 11. Yes, my team convinced me that we needed a gumbo brass band DJ to party into the night. But I would encourage you all to go on the Eventbrite and sign up there. But the goal for this, Juneteenth, 1865, was when African Americans were freed in this country. We were not able to fully participate in what our nationality then allowed the average citizen. And we can argue that that may not have been achieved for quite some time, or not even today. We're going to talk about how to fully participate in being a citizen in America, and not saying that the complicated relationship and history that African Americans have in this country says that we aren't patriotic. Many groups will use this as a weapon, as almost like, African Americans are not patriotic. And I grew up in a family where people served in the military, people, voting polls. My mom worked as a voting poll chief for many years into retirement. And so these things are need to be talked about, and we need to know as African Americans how to show up in the country to receive the full benefits of what citizenship looks like here. So we just want to bring forward the African American Smithsonian and Wendy Green, who's the author of the Crown Act. So we're gonna talk about quite a few things. So thank you all for hearing me. I know I'm a couple minutes over here, but I look forward to answering any questions that you have. And I see you, Mayor Holbert. Thank you for joining.
Cecil, thank you. And I'll be sure to share the link to the annual meeting in the follow-up email afterwards for everyone to view. So Cecil, I would love to start by going back and having you elaborate a bit more around the efforts that UBF is focused on in raising funds for the Olympic boxer from Cleveland. Can you share more about that?
Yes, I'll try to be brief. She's from Glenville. She grew up training at the Glenville Rec, which if you go in Glenville Rec, it's like nothing but a boxing ring, and weights are outside like in the backyard. Her coach, Push Davis, was made, we became close, last year, and he was, I found out that he was training him. He's the second generation of boxing coach in his family. His father trained previous Olympic boxers. Long story short, her village needs to go to Paris with her. When people can't see that sibling or that mother, that single mother in the crowd, it deflates, right? When everybody else has, people that could easily afford a ticket to Paris or a hotel room. So we just said something simple. It's, hey, let us pay for your family to come with you. And she went crazy. And that's it. We're just paying for her family to go with. But guess what? The mayor now knows about her. Intel is basically saying, we need to help. We're coming to Ohio. We're doing a city club forum. So the Cleveland Black Equity Humanity Fund and Noel, one of our partners with this, we just wrapped our arms around her and just, again, created an opportunity for her to have a foundation to go and win. Now, when she comes back, it's up to us to make sure that she's no longer working third shift. She's no longer looking for a job, sleeping in the car during the day because you gotta get to the gym to train. We have to create a quality of life for her that is, let's call it, the best that we have to offer. And I'll just leave it at that.
I highly encourage everyone who may not be familiar with her story to check her out and absolutely tune in this summer when she's competing over in Paris. So thank you for the efforts that you all
Yeah.
are doing to help her get there.
Yes. Thank you.
You mentioned also the training programs you have for organizations and the Small Business Incubator. Can you share some examples of some of the early outcomes of those programs?
Yeah. So, we've had organizations through the CDTO, as an example, come to us. Well, I'll just start there. Here, we Bob Kahan, the late Bob Kahan, and I met for about a year and a half, saying, "What are we going to do together, Cecil? What are we going to do together, Bob?" Over at the old Shaker Square, yours truly, and the pandemic happened, and I called Bob, and we hosted how to fundraise training. As a result of that, organizations in this first meeting said, we feel bad calling people saying that we need money because the nation is struggling right now. This is the average small size to mid-size entity that we're focused on. Wait a minute, we said this is the exact time you should be fundraising. All my folks on the Zoom probably said no, that's the opposite, right? So we're saying no, you have to ask people. Money is sitting there to help at this time. And from that, we birthed national relationships. And when I say national relationships, I'm talking about executive, I'm not going to call out particular agencies, but executive director positions being endowed by donors. $100,000 asks being fulfilled to gird up an agency who was probably at the time that was their full budget, right? And so that is a direct result of just Bob and I sitting at a table and taking action when the time presented itself. In terms of mortar is and you all forgive me, I sometimes I speak directly, okay? Cleveland has this thing about outsiders coming to us, telling us what to do about Cleveland, right? It's like, we know what we're doing over here. And in the past, this group out of Cincinnati had visited Cleveland saying, we have this wonderful program based out of Cincinnati, started by, I think, 5 young African-American guys. And we were last in the country as in for-profit entities being able to launch and operate successfully. African American and minority owned firms. The best place in the country for a minority owned firm to launch was San Francisco. Cincinnati was last. Guess who was next to last? Cleveland. In 7 or 8 years, Cincinnati had moved up to be in the top 10 in the nation for a minority business to launch and be successful. I said, sign me up. I don't care what anybody in the city said. They said, what's the franchise fee is basically what I likened it to. And it was about 500,000. We went to the SBA and we have now probably 1.5 million in total funding from the SBA to actually support that program. And we can run it right now, probably through 2029. And we hope to obviously attract more funding, which we have, to run it into perpetuity. Because right now, Cincinnati has a cohort of minority businesses that probably about 800 alumni that actually do business together. And so the result, to answer your question, Rachel, the result is people are collecting, they're buying tables at events together to go and network. Like, and they don't want to be under UBF's brand, and nor do I want them to be under UBF's brand. They buy tables as Mortar Cleveland. They have a WhatsApp. They do all of these things with our support, of course, to encourage their collective effort to impact the city. And I'm talking anything from roofers to grant writers. And they're using each other and they're partnering on projects to provide income for the city and their families at the same time.
As you look ahead to, say, the next year, what are some of the big priorities that you feel UBF will be focusing on?
Wow. That's a great question. I obviously, we want to scale. We feel as though we can make more impact. This is a true story, and I'm sorry if any of you all are on here from the major foundations. I went to ask for my first money from the Cleveland Foundation, and I was told, well, you're our peer. And I'm like, no, nope, nope, we don't have a bill. And in fact, we do. We have aspirations to scale this so that we can make significant impact. Right now, where our average grant size is 7 or 10,000. Again, we do have our second round of funding that we give out $25,000 grants. But if I could fund more uh, people, more organizations at scale, giving out $100,000 minimum, that's my objective. And a final thing is that we are connecting with other United Black funds around the country. They asked me when they hired me 10 years ago, what do you see yourself doing in 10 years? I was like, I don't know if I'll be here in 10 years. I was a corporate guy, I'm like 3 years, you make your impact and you're gone. But I had this nonprofit heart. Everything had to have meaning and purpose. And so as I got here, I fell in love with the organization. I fell in love with what we do. And so I'm here, right? So 10 years, what my response was, well, I said, if I'm here, um, it's obvious that I would actually take our best practices and introduce it to the nation. And in fact, that's what we're doing. Some of the things that we were able to do with Leadership Cleveland just blew my mind. And this was, after Hurricane Maria down in Puerto Rico, we translated, with the help of Leadership Cleveland and the Leadership Center there, we translated our training manual, the little bitty United Black Fund training manual, into Spanish, and then trained NGOs in South America and Puerto Rico on how to get funding for kind of the rebuild of the island, you know. And so my hope is that we can scale and then ultimately take our best practices and make world impact.
So final question, when you hit your next 10 years with United Black Fund, what do you hope the organization and the community look like, and what's that impact?
So we're building communities now. We're in the PERC initiative. We're actually looking to actually build housing, build mixed use, build. I see Mayor Hoban on the line. We're trying to make impact in places like Woodmere. Woodmere is a historic African-American community, middle class, solid. But the traditional citizen is being priced out. We know what rents are doing in the country. Something has to change. But I want to make sure that UBF is creating an alternative. I really feel strongly that the nonprofit sector has to keep the economy honest. It's a great alternative if it understands capitalism. We want the county, we want the city, we want industry. I see you, Steve, my classmate. We want Vitamix to make money because that's what keeps America churning. And so if we don't come in with a business mindset and allow for an alternative so that people can have a good quality of life, then we would have not achieved the maximum outcome for our city, county, nation. And so I just feel strongly that as UBF, being a honest partner, a trusted friend to industry, a trusted friend to community, that we can make certain that whatever investments we have, it can be equitably distributed to the people and to the corporations, because their money would then be, in turn, their products would be purchased by healthy citizens. And I feel strongly that as we build community, which we are physically building community, as we invest in community, we have during the pandemic, we launched a full for-profit arm of UBF. So at that point, we know that we have to invest and then also philanthropic support. So that concludes my talk, I guess.
Well, I think that's a great note to land on. And Cecil, thank you for all of the work you and UBF are doing in our community. And we are thankful to have your leadership here in Cleveland.